Oh, one comment. The rally yesterday was excellent.
The rally was good. I want to hear about that. Hang on just a second. Welcome to the Contemporary Issues Sunday School class. We are pleased today to have part 2 of 2 with Christine Little, retired high school psychology teacher from Arapahoe and member of St. Andrew, talking about the book, The Anxious Generation, how iPhones and social media have affected our young people, not always in a good way. And so we had a great discussion last week, and I had lots of comments about how great the class was and the topic. So we're looking forward to it this week too. But first, our usual announcements. Zoomers, thank you for joining us. Please mute yourself in the lower left corner of your screen when you're not speaking. And we are recording this for future playback. And any other announcements? Yesterday was protest
Yes,
in Denver and Boulder.
and then Highlands Ranch and a number of places.
Many
all
places.
around the country. Which was kind of, well, all over the world, actually.
How many people went to it? Oh my
Wow.
goodness, a third or more of our class,
There were at last count 800 people,
800.
and I'm friends
Where
with.
were you?
I was all over. I was following Bob Marshall.
Oh.
But down at the Capitol, there was many
Oh,
thousands.
30.
Older had over a thousand.
Yeah.
Boulder had over 1,000, Jeff said.
1,000 downtown.
10,000. Wow,
At,
Carla.
at University and Highlands Ranch Parkway, there were around 900.
Wow, wow.
And Steve, Tom and Don Kuski went to Boulder, looked to retreat, went up, and they emailed him back this morning or last night and said there were about 4,000. They were expecting about 1,500.
4,000 in Boulder.
Right.
And there was not a lot of counter protest, which I was glad for.
Good
But
question.
I had 3 people flip me the, and one said F.
Oh,
But other than that, it just felt very upbeat and really positive, and yeah.
TV cameras there too?
No, but I do know somebody who was there, so a former reporter, and he said that he sent it into, the local affiliates, a video that he had made.
Good,
The Capitol was packed.
yes,
And
I'll
all
bet the
kinds
Capitol
of
was packed.
wonderful signs.
yes. Frank,
My wife and I are hosting a potato party in, 13 days. You're welcome
Okay.
to come. I'll have details next week. And, you can view it many ways. One way is that she gets to get me to vacuum the house.
okay, that's always good. Good, from protest to potato parties, we cover it all here. All righty, thank you, everybody. Okay, introduced Christine already a little bit. I do want to make one correction. Last week, I said that I thought that the Arapahoe School shooting was in Christine's class, and she clarified for me it was in the school during her 5th hour, not in her class in particular. It was in the library. But still a traumatic thing for Christine and everyone there, of course. But thank you so much, Christine, for this topic. It's good, and take it away.
Okay, so as Steve said, we talked about how social media is affecting our young people today, particularly Generation Z. Now comes the hard part, and that is, what do we do about it? So let's take a look. I included the handouts that I gave you last week, just in case you didn't bring it, but I have an additional handout that you'll see here. So Dr. Haidt says here, it's hard for us to understand what is happening or to know what to do about it, but we must do something. We must try new policies and measures and measure the outcomes. We must prepare for collective action. So he goes through and talks about what tech companies, governments, schools, parents, and even ourselves can do about this problem. So first, what can governments and tech companies do? Assert a duty of care. He talks about the age-appropriate design code that was enacted by the United Kingdom in 2020. And essentially what they said is that the companies, tech companies have a moral and legal responsibility as to how they treat minors. The law requires that the default settings for minors be private, and the default should be that no one can find the location of a child from a post or use of an app. So they also believe that these platforms should be clear and transparent. Now, that was in 2020. The last legislation that we have had was in 1998 that I'll talk about in the next slide. I tried to do some research on what's happening now, and Dr. Haidt does mention this, Kids Online Safety Act 2024. It was bipartisan in the Senate, passed in the Senate by 91-3, but then it died in the House. The House didn't even bring it up to the floor, citing free speech issues. But that act proposed that minors required them to have reasonable steps to prevent harm, including bullying, violence, exposure to harmful content, and giving parents the tools to supervise their children's online activities. It's controversial and actually has some strange bedfellows. Those who oppose it are the ACLU, tech lobbyists, and LGBTQ advocacy groups, based on free speech, privacy, and potential censorship concerns. So this is very complicated. What may seem really a good idea, you've got issues of, we don't want the government to go too far. We don't want the tech companies to go too far in squelching free speech. So as this is now, I don't think anything's happening with it because nothing happened with it in the House. Okay, our last legislation, as I said, was back in 1998. And just a few things have occurred since that time in the tech world. That was the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. And that kind of set the age for 13 as kind of the adult level for children. There was a push to have it to 16, but with compromise, it didn't pass. And so now it's still 13. And because it's 13 in the US, it's been kind of universally the age of 13 now. Now, I did look to see if there's anything else, and there are several proposals that have come, mainly generated from the Senate. This one, Protecting Kids on Social Media Act, didn't have a very long life. They were predicting, or they wanted to allow social media at age 13, but parental consent is needed for ages 13 to 17 to open an account. And that's the problem here. Young people are getting around that and opening accounts like Alexis, remember, the 11-year-old that opened that Instagram account and had so many problems. They wanted to try, this proposal wanted to try to limit that. It also banned the use of algorithms on users under 18. And this is where the tech companies are very smart, as I said before, using behavioral techniques. And the algorithms feed the young people with certainly fees to get them more hooked into using the social media more and more and more. And they wanted to try to limit that. No surprise that this failed to pass. And so thus far, nothing is happening with that I'm aware of. Then this was brought up. I don't think Dr. Haidt mentioned this. Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, which was part of the Telecommunications Act of 1996, again, many years ago. This protects the tech companies from being legally responsible for third-party content and for content moderation decisions, allowing them to remove or restrict content. Again, this was bipartisan, a push again to revive that and say, why don't we sunset this? Why don't we take away those legal protections from the tech companies? There's a concern now, however, that if you do that, the small and mid-sized companies would not be able to withstand the onslaught of lawsuits, and they would not be able to survive. And I looked up Meta and Apple and Microsoft, just to give you an idea. Meta has gobbled up or acquired 96 companies, including Instagram and WhatsApp. Apple has absorbed 100 companies, and Microsoft has absorbed 250 companies. So you see now these big monopolies have absorbed some of these smaller companies and now they have a great deal of power. For example, Blue Sky, I think is the new alternative to X. They would not last long if there was a lawsuit. So this is the problem with taking away those, the protections, then you've got these small companies that wouldn't be able to withstand the lawsuits. So I included for you in this handout, as I was looking at the pros and cons of this section 230, would it be best to impose, to take 230 away and then make tech companies liable for the harmful content that they're pushing on our young people, or to give them the protections? So as I was reading both the pro and con, I realized that I could go either way. I felt that I kept on changing my mind. So I thought I would give you 3 points for and 3 points again for you to decide and see how complicated it is to try to come up with some rational legislation to protect our young people.
Christine, I want to make sure I'm on the right slide here.
No, go back.
Back up.
Let's see, did I not get, oh, I guess I did.
went
I
all
added
forward.
that on my slide. I guess you don't have it then.
Okay.
I guess so it didn't go on your slide.
Okay.
I had a slide on section 230,
Okay.
but that's good because you have it in your hand on section 230. That is the next one that I did. But Dr. Height, so anyway, take a read it. Nothing has happened with this, to my knowledge. It was resurrected, but nothing has occurred. Dr. Height suggests that maybe the legislators concentrate on the design of the platforms rather than the content, since the content seems to be more controversial. How are they designing their platforms to hook our young people? But then again, as we know, the tech companies are pretty powerful politically now. Will they be willing to kind of rein in any of their very lucrative algorithms? Okay, now you're on age verification. So Dr. Height also recommends, why don't we have a better way of verifying the age? He suggests that these large companies create a feature called Age Check, in which the default would be always on. So when a young person tries to sign up for a certain account, it would default to maybe parental consent, that somehow the parents would have an opportunity to say yes or no, that you could do that. This was just a suggestion. So the recommendation is try to get the tech companies to, because right now, I understand there's no obligation really for the tech companies to verify age. And young people are far smarter than their parents in getting around age verification. So would Age Check work? I don't know, but it would certainly be something to try. So then Dr. Height also goes back to this phone-free schools. And this is also a topic when we talk about what schools can do, but I'm putting it here because his recommendation, it does involve some cost. And that is using these lockable phone pouches or lockable phone lockers. Has anyone heard of these at all? Okay, there is a cost to this. The lockable pouch with the base and including training is about $27 to $30 per student. So it can be expensive. A company by the name of Yonder has been making these. And I checked to see, I was surprised that lockable phones are in all 50 states and in 35 countries. So about 2 million students are exposed to these. I didn't know that. I hadn't heard about that. The students don't seem to like them as well. And they found ways to get around it. They'll take a burner phone and put it in a pouch and then keep it.
Yeah.
But something interesting has happened, that even though they may try to find ways around it, the culture has changed. So they know they're not supposed to have their phones. So if a student pulls up their phone in class, the students say, hey, what are you doing? You're supposed to have it in the locker. So it's changed the practice, even though it may not be really effective. And the effectiveness depends upon how diligent the administrators are in pursuing it. Some students say that it's cheaper to maybe have phone lockers that you can see on the other side there, where they just put their lockers in put their phones in the locker and then pick it up after school. The problem with this is if a school has ever had a school shooting, you're gonna have parents be very reluctant to have their children not have their children have their phones.
Wow.
Height says, well, yes, but the children should be responding to the teacher's directions anyway and not be using their phones. But tell parents that. I just think that could be a deterrent to letting the parents realize that my child does not have their phone for the entire school day. One option would be to, later on we'll talk about, is to just not have a smartphone, but have a regular phone. If they're so interested in getting a hold of their child, they can have a regular phone where they don't have the internet. And that way parents can respond. Again, difficult to enforce. Are you going to get parents to do that?
A dumb phone.
A dumb phone, rather smartphone to dumb phone.
Go back
So,
to BlackBerry.
has anyone had experience with this? What do you think about this idea of these phone pouches or phone lockers? Anyone have any thoughts on it? I don't think, yes.
Well, part of the reason I'm in here is that I teach in an elementary school, and we're gonna try to, phones aren't allowed, but the watches have become like a really big problem. So we're gonna do a book study for parents on this next year, and fingers crossed, maybe like try and have it be where they can't bring their watches or phones to school. So then we do have to figure out how parents who want their kids to walk home and have a phone, how that's managed. Currently, it's managed, the phone stays in their backpack, and we haven't had a problem with that, but the watches have become, we've become inundated with watches. And it's also healthy for the parents and kids to have that time apart. You know what I mean? There's a lot of independence that's kind of grown without having quite that access to your parent, right? You know what I mean? Like emergencies, we have systems set up, we have the office they can call, you know. There's a lot of learning, for both parents and for kids. I don't know, we'll see, but we don't have experience yet with it, but we're flying here to see that.
Interesting. Thank you, Gene.
If I were better organized, I would have gotten the title of the book. But there was an MIT professor, keep in mind, MIT, in technology. And she would have an almost approximated outward bound experiences. She had a camp in Massachusetts, good for helicopter parents, as well as those who are addicted, sort of like detox, where they could go for 2 weeks and learn how to exist without a phone. Seriously, and apparently it was quite successful. There is the shock effect, and the counselors had to help the students work through that. But the fact remains, that's another way of dealing with the issue here that you're describing to us here.
And and the parents are a problem too, because I know, and I would say, no phones in the school, and I would have a student checking their phone, and he said, oh, well, my mom was just checking to see how I did on my test. So interrupting class, knowing that her student is in class and still calling to find out how they did on the test. So you've got to, like you said, you have to educate the parents as well as the young people to say, hold off, this is, we don't want. Yeah, that's right. Before we move on to another topic of what Dr. Height recommends, any comments about the legislation? Or whether you think it's even realistic to think that our government could rein in the tech companies?
Mitch.
I think enforceability is impossible. When you've got
Is
a
possible?
lot
you
of.
said?
Impossible.
Impossible, okay.
You've got a lot of, you've got the tech companies who don't want it. You've got the kids who don't want it, and they're in a league with one another.
No.
You don't have many people that do want it. My experience with it was, I was teaching a survey course, business law at a university. And I had like 300 people in my class. And this was at the advent of a lot of the technology, but giving a multiple choice test was impossible at that point, because they could have it in their laps and text one another. And I had to come up with different ways to try to do that, which was basically monkeying with the exams
Yeah.
and have like an A, B, C, D exam and give a quarter of the class one and another in different orders. So that somebody couldn't say, excuse me, so they couldn't say question 3, answer A,
Yeah.
when they weren't all the same.
What a problem.
Frank?
Is there any history? To me, it's, when the printing press went vernacular and the local language and the trauma that, at one level induced the religious wars, but it also at another context lets us, have a far more, religious denominations. And do you trust people with different religious denominations?
Another angle. I just noticed, looking at my screen, that Ann Wormley has her electronic hand up. So Ann, go ahead.
Betty, this is a comment about the camps not having access, or kids not going to camp and not having access to cell phones. My daughters went to Camp Chief Uray, the YMCA camp behind Snow Mountain Ranch, in the late 90s, early 2000s. Back then, they did not allow cell phones. You know, it was a standing rule. They just did not have cell phones. They still do not have cell phones, and they have continued that since early on, since the late 90s.
Oh, interesting. Thank you. And then Rogers, I see, has your hand up too.
Yeah, that it seems to me that, you know, the issue of whether you can enforce students not having phones in in the classroom isn't all that difficult. You'd confiscate the telephone, and that the parents have to pick it up after school or whenever they can from the central office to do that, and then give it back to their child. I think it would take about 1 or 2 times of that, and the parents would get fed up and the student would start doing it.
Well, that's a good question. Do schools or individual teachers have the ability to do whatever they want, require kids to give up their phones?
EMF shielding and all.
Does anybody know? Carla, former principal.
If it, well, our rule was they could bring them, but they had to stay in the backpack and they had to be turned off. If they rang during the day or if they were caught using them, then the teacher could take them up and bring it to the office, and then the parent would have to come retrieve it from my office.
Huh.
And it really only took once of that happening. And then they didn't do it again. So then they would have it on their way to school, and they would have it to turn on their way home. So that worked pretty well, and that was in our parent student handbook.
Was that
There's no-
Elementary, yeah.
There's no school district-wide policies in our local school districts on this yet?
Remember when the principal from Rock Canyon was
Yeah.
there? And he said that he left it up to the teacher, individual teachers, some allow.
Yes. Yes.
Interesting.
And that's the problem, lack of consistency. Some parents, some teachers didn't bother. And I remember one time, I took a phone from a child. It was like I was taking away a security blanket. I mean, he was just really, he was angry, very angry at me. I told him, I'll give it to you at the end of the class. You know, I wasn't even going to send it to the principal. But just having it taken away was traumatic for him. So.
I agree with you that lack of, you have to make the rule for all, but I think it was just something they were trying to work out and didn't have an answer yet.
Right.
Maybe it's changed, I don't know.
Okay, let's go on to another recommendation of Dr. Height. Correct the overprotection of the real world. Remember, he was saying that we moved into safetyism, and he's recommending that state and local governments release their restrictive laws on neglect and give more children some unsupervised time. Again, this is a problem for, then just let one abduction occur in the neighborhood and then you've got a problem. So our state and local government's going to want to take that chance on really, kind of minimizing the punishment for neglect. Just a thought, for that, but that's what he thinks. And then also he says that state and local government should invest more in vocational education, apprenticeship, youth development programs, particularly for boys, that they should have that would have a positive influence for them. We do have the Job Corps that offers free education and vocational training. That's been around since 1964. That's for ages 16 to 24. We also have AmeriCorps that is a national service program, kind of like a domestic Peace Corps. And I don't know about the administration of that, but it seems to me that would be something that would really help our young people, giving them like maybe just a year. They would get paid a minimal wage, but they would go in service of someone else. In other words, get out of their comfort zone. Someone in a rural area might go and work in the inner city and vice versa. They would get exposed to different young people of different, maybe different ethnicities, different social backgrounds. I think it would do a world of benefit to our young people to get them more, first of all, to have them think about someone other than themselves, to get them out and give to what can I do as a citizen, and then get experience, volunteering or working or getting, having a small job, and then interacting with people that are different from them. To me, I'm very worried about the polarization. That would be something AmeriCorps probably needs to do a little more advertising and have incentives, just a year, not required, but really highly encouraged. Anyone have any thoughts on that?
Well, I'm just wondering if those might be in danger of getting cut in the current administration.
Possibly. I looked at AmeriCorps and there have been concerns about management, and so maybe poor management be the problem. If we would make sure that it's run well and efficiently, maybe we might get more people to be involved in it.
I have a quick funny comment from the men's retreat just yesterday. Rev Mark said he thought it was important for us here at St. Andrew to have employed people from different cultures so that we would learn about them too. And that's why he hired Rev Jerry from Texas.
That's good.
Yeah.
And how long has he been here?
5 years.
Oh, 5 years. So
Yes.
he's doing okay.
Yeah.
It's harder on him than it is.
Yeah, he was assimilated.
Yeah.
We're doing okay.
Okay.
And Jerry laughed at that and said, I love you all a lot. Y'all a lot.
That's great. That's great. Okay, before we move on to the schools, any comment about tech companies and governments can do? Doesn't look very promising, does it? I mean, at least on this, but maybe local governments can do something on this issue. So what can schools do now? Dr. Hyde starts out with a story, true story from our very own school, Mountain Middle School in Durango, Colorado. Evidently this school, and they went phone free in 2012. This school had high rates of suicide. And there was bullying and sleep deprivation and social comparison, and there were numerous problems in the school. So the principal decided to do something drastic, and this is 2012. He said, we're going to go phone free. And what happened was that children began to talk to each other. Before they would come into class, no one would talk, they'd be on their phones. They wouldn't talk to the teacher or anyone else. And now they come in and they're talking to each other. Their academic performance has improved. They actually achieved Colorado's highest performance rating. This is a rural school. And this just by that taking away that phone that everyone thought was so important. Evidently, they got collaboration from the parents, but it proves that it can be done. I wasn't aware of that even with all the problems, this can be done.
There's a cultural norm that is evolving. There was a recent study at Harvard, 500 students, and the consensus was it's not cool cool to interrupt somebody on their phone. In other words, it's not cool to talk. Not cool to talk. The phone trumps actual conversation. That's a culture, that's a norm that apparently is evolving or to kind of reflects a little bit.
So you're saying it's okay to be interrupted while you're talking to someone, it's okay to,
No,
it's not,
No.
Other way around.
other way around, you do not,
No.
Supersedes any.
oh, the phone does or does not?
Really talk.
So if the phone rings,
Yeah.
you stop the conversation.
Yeah, phone's more
Tend
important.
to the phone.
Wow, yeah. Has anyone had that happen where you're talking to someone and they get the phone, and by the way, I'll just take this, and then it ends up being about 5 minutes?
Yeah.
That's rude, in my opinion. Okay, but this was successful. All right, educate students to use internet in constructive ways. Dr. Hyde is not saying that, this social media, even the internet is bad, but there are ways to train young people to use it effectively, using research effectively. Even graphic design, even ChatGPT, which now AI is coming in, a whole new thing that we need to deal with for young people. Khan Academy, you may be aware of this. This is an internet program where children can have like personal tutor, can really help them. So there are benefits. It's just making sure to train them. I remember when I was talking, having students do research, it was so difficult to make sure that they got sites that were valid. I would ask them, well, who's the author? What's the author's credential? They say, well, I heard it on the internet, and as if it were truth. So children are used to just believing anything they see on the internet rather than what is the source? Go back and make sure, if you're going to quote something in a paper, make sure that you know it's accurate.
Adults forge everything
on
on
the
the
internet.
That's a trap for the youth.
And then implement more free play again. Offer a play club to schools, programs like Let Grow Project. There was a teacher in a rural South Carolina school that young people were having very difficulty with academics, with resilience. And he had some ideas and he got approval from the administrator to try something. So he had more recess time for the school. And then he instituted a play club where after school, 2 or 3 times a week, young people could stay after school, or they'd have some playtime before school, but after school, play club where they were just unsupervised. They had all kinds of things that they could play with. And they did this 2 or 3 times a week. They only had 2 rules. One, do not deliberately harm anyone. And the second rule was do not leave the group without telling the teacher. Other than that, they were unsupervised. And lo and behold, the first semester, he saw a lot of changes in the class. The second semester, listen to this. The truancy rates went down from 54 to 30. School bus violations went down from 85 to 31. And office referrals went down from 225 to 45. So just by having that extra playtime where young people could interact with each other, unsupervised, develop their creativity. So this is why Dr. Hyde is really pushing for going back to a more play-based childhood. And I want to refer you to the last paragraph in that main themes that I gave you the first week, and I gave it to you again here. Unstructured free play addresses head-on, making friends, learning empathy, learning emotional regulation, learning interpersonal skills, and greatly empowers students by helping them find a healthy place in their school community, all while teaching them life's most important skills like creativity, innovation, critical thinking, collaboration, communication, self-direction, perseverance, and social skills. That's a lot of benefits for the play. And again, I want to refer you to the article I gave you, talking, I don't know if you read it or not, but how self-regulation is seen, children are not being able to self-regulate as much as the play-based childhood is diminishing. children are not getting that direction. So I want to recommend to you to watch this video on the marshmallow test, because Walter Mischel did a study on how young people can have self-direction, self-control, self-regulation.
Late grad.
Do you have that slide there? Oh, I guess, oh, I thought did you?
Sorry, we don't have it on this one.
I'm sorry.
Let's skip on over.
Okay, well, I do want to tell you about it, though. I'm going to, it's the marshmallow test, and I'd like you to go online to the YouTube and type in marshmallow test. And then it'll be the one of the first two. It's only 3.5 minutes long. It'll be Igniter Media Church video. I thought I'd pass that on to you. This is a video showing this, the Walter Mischel's study. Does anyone know? Have you heard of the marshmallow test? Okay.
Can you give the name again?
It's the marshmallow test, Walter Mischel.
The name of the video.
The video, I'll pass this around so you can, so you can take a look at it, maybe take a picture of it. Because I showed this for years in my classroom. Essentially, the test was this, and Mischel conducted this study in Stanford and also in Columbia University. He had a marshmallow and put it on a table of a young child and said, okay, I'm gonna leave this marshmallow here, and if you wait for, I'm gonna have to leave, and if you don't eat the marshmallow, by the time I get back, you can have 2 marshmallows. So the child has to decide, am I gonna wait and not eat this marshmallow and have the chance of getting 2 marshmallows? And he found, that this was in the 1960s, before the move away from the play-based childhood. And he found that those young people, he did a longitudinal study on those young people, the young people who had some self-control and were able to not eat that marshmallow, had better grades, better social skills, better sense of self-worth, and were better able to handle stress as adults. Yes.
Peter, he's a Rotarian. A forensic psychiatrist friend of mine said that in his work, the big gap is the ability to engage in critical thinking. The phone gives you a lot of information. Doesn't mean you're engaged in critical thinking. So in a lot of the clients that he has, that seems to be a big issue, critical thinking, the lack of. Therefore, just thinking of that one piece there that you were mentioning.
On that. And again, and this idea of being able to play, interact, have executive function, making decisions, solving their own problems is really important. But this is a darling YouTube. It's my favorite. These children are so cute as they try to not eat the marshmallow. They're going around. I want to eat it, but I don't want to eat it. And it's only 3.5 minutes long. You'll be able to find it if you just see it's about 15 years old. It's one of the top ones. And Mischel has since published a book, 2014. He published a book called The Marshmallow Test, and saying that this self-control is a key to success if you have that. And it relates to today with young people in having self-control with their phones. This is why my probably one reason why many of my students only got 3 or 4 hours of sleep, because they did not have any self-regulation or self-control in not using that phone. I need to get some sleep. I need to stop using the phone.
Can't stop.
And so, and tech companies play on that. They know that young people today don't have as much self-control, and then they hook them into with their models to get them to go on to continue to be addicted to the phone. So this one.
It's profit driven.
Absolutely, yeah. Asking the tech companies to not make as much money because they on their phone.
Yeah, because they don't care.
No,
They're not there for the benefit of welfare of the child. They're there to make money.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Period.
So I recommend that for you. Steve said we couldn't play it here in class because of copyright
Copyright.
issues, right? Because if we post it, then it's someone else's video. So that's why I'm recommending it to you. Okay, then the next one is to re-engage boys. Okay. Again, we know how boys were affected. We talked about how girls have been affected, but boys also have been affected by the use of social media, mainly use of video games, pornography, but they've been retreating from the real world and living more in the virtual world of the internet. So Hyde recommends trying to hire more male teachers, more vocational training, and also steering them towards what he calls the HEAL professions: health, education, administration, and literacy. Does anyone have any comments about what we talked about last time about girls being affected or boys being affected by social media? Okay, let's go on to what can parents do now? I like what he says here. Parents should be better gardeners, creating a space in which their children can learn and grow, in contrast to being carpenters who try to mold and shape their children's activities. That's kind of hard to do, isn't it? Kind of like the idea of giving the children roots and wings. Roots, giving them the foundation of unconditional love with boundaries, and then also giving them wings so that they can explore and learn in the real world. So that's a big tip.
In our age group, which is probably predominant in the room, that's the way we live. Everything you're saying reflects my childhood. And I'm wondering if other people feel the same. We weren't, after we did our little tasks in the morning, we were gone for the day. And then came back to set the table for supper. And we had dogs to take care of, we had responsibilities, but we weren't supervised.
Yes.
Now, I'm wondering if that's unique or.
Me too, yeah.
There's something horribly paradoxical about that, because there's really a lot less parenting skill or effort when you let children grow with boundaries and the safety net. They turn out fine. But I think when you try to live their life for them, they don't know how to live their own life.
That's right. And they don't develop the self-esteem.
I knew nothing about parenting and made very little effort to learn anything, but I think I maybe set those boundaries and let them grow up. Let them fail, let them learn how to succeed. And
that's the biggest thing too, letting them learn to fail. That's still hard for a parent to let the child fail and deal with that failure.
I agree.
This is a challenge too, that I talked about earlier. Give only basic phones before high school, the start of high school. And he suggests this is difficult. Parents should get together with other parents of their friends and make a pact. Okay, we're not going to let our children have smartphones until high school. That way they won't be the only child without a smartphone. If that could work, if they collaborate, even just a few families get together and stick to that, that could make a world of difference for the children. And then use parental, this is for the parents, take advantage of these parental controls, what's left, what they have, provide clear limits and have no device zones. I would recommend one area would be the dinner table, no phones at the dinner table so we can talk to each other. But if you allow phones, you're going to have a problem. And then finally, look out for signs of problematic and addictive use. This also is difficult for parents to cite it because children are very, very skilled at hiding their use. I think there was a story, that a parent locked up the phone at night, and then the child found a way to get it at night while the parents were asleep and still use it. So this is an issue for parents to try to monitor what's going on with their children. Anything about parents? Okay, now comes for the Harper bill.
Well, I was just gonna say, the loss of the children of parental example. In other words, this is the way to be a mother. This is the way the father acts in our generation and serving as an example.
And what if the parents are on their cell phones all day long?
The behavior that's modeled.
Yeah, modeling.
Yeah.
And that's what we talked about the last time. Remember, a lot of children said that their parents were distracted when they tried to talk to them.
Yeah,
And because they were on their phone, but that's a good
And
point.
so the child copies.
yeah,
That's right.
yeah. Judy.
I think I want to thank you for recommending Adolescence on Netflix.
Yes,
This reminds me of that statement, the last one.
Yeah.
right. That was so tragic. I watched that too. How many watched Adolescence? Yeah, it's hard to watch. It's intense, but it's worthwhile, definitely.
Ann, I see your hand up, but let's let Christine get through the last couple slides and then we'll do discussion with everybody.
Okay. Two more questions, and this comes the hard part. What can we do now? And how is technology changing us? So we, in our stage of life now, where we've had experience and hopefully a lot of wisdom, though it may not be recognized by our children, our grandchildren, but how can we use that experience to help our children and grandchildren and nieces and nephews have a more successful life and better mental health? Things that we can do. Any suggestions? I have some things here in the picture. We can maybe go with them to museums. We can go on hikes with them, outdoors, explore. We can just sit there without phones and talk. But what are some of your ideas? What can you do to help?
We can learn more about it ourselves. I mean, I say, oh, I don't understand that, and let it go. But I need to know more. I need to know more about all that technology, but I don't care. I don't want to.
I'll just say.
Yeah. Okay, Ann on Zoom, I'll go ahead and go to you. Go ahead, Ann.
Oh, hi again. Way back in the mid to late 70s, I worked at a special needs school with all kinds of special ed kids. We had a behavior specialist that we worked with. And way back then, we were learning not to be helicopter parents and teachers, and it's sad that they're still trying to learn this skill that, you can't come in and save your child and then take off again, anyway, I just thought I'd mention that. Plus my daughters, way back when we had answering machines before cell phones, we said, hey, at dinner time, we just don't answer if somebody calls, there's always a message machine to pick up unless it's a super big emergency, which it never was. And as a result, they never brought cell phones to the table either. And they, as adults in their 30s, we still don't. We have family dinners and we never have cell phones. We've been doing that for years.
Good.
Very good.
So let's looking at ourselves as there's a chapter that Dr. Haidt devotes to what is happening to us. And he is saying, that's our that side here, that how is technology changing us? So I'll go through these cartoons first, and then we'll talk about it. I'm going to have Steve read the last one. But the first one is, what have you done in your life? A voice from on high asks. And he says, didn't you read my tweets? And then the middle one, most of the new arrivals seem incapable of a conversation. They just stare at their hands in despair. And then I think we can all relate to this one, Steve. Why don't you read that
Okay,
one?
yeah, St. Peter says to the person arriving, sorry, your username and password don't match.
That's good.
So we have right? So we have to look at ourselves. He's saying the phone-based life produces spiritual degradation in all of us. And going back to the our themes that I had, that he mentions one of the quotes that he had, the fourth one down, that he says social media is a foundation of bedevilments. It trains people to think in ways that are exactly contrary to the world's wisdoms, traditions. Think about yourself first, be materialistic, judgmental, boastful, and petty. Seek glory as quantified by likes and followers. So, is he right?
Yeah.
Are we becoming that? And I like the comment he makes here too, that the phone-based life makes it difficult for people to be fully present with others when they are with others, and to sit quietly with themselves when they are alone. What do you think?
What did you make about the section that he talks about the brain actually being rewired? And that the brain is operating differently today than it was back in what we were alluding to back in our time. So, what's
Yes.
your take on that?
Because when the children would go through puberty, which is a very important time for development, that's when, remember, that pruning takes place and the myelinization, when the actual inside of the brain is formulated. So if children are on their phones, or their actions make a big difference. The same way even with playing unsupervised, it trains the brain to develop in a certain way. Now, those of you who might feel you're addicted to social media now, you're in luck, because your brains have already developed. So you're not going to be affected as these young people are. In fact, you don't have to raise your hand, but I just might ask, how many of you feel that you might be a little over zealous about your use of your phones and social media? Anyone want to admit to that?
I want to admit in front of everyone that I do doom scroll on Facebook sometimes. And I know that that is, the oldsters social media platform. Yes, I am guilty. And I also wanted to make one other comment. There is a podcast called Homebrewed Christianity. And one of the latest ones on March 27th, the title of that podcast, and they're sort of also involved with the theology beer camp that we did here. The allure of the screen and the erosion of the soul, smartphones, fascination, and the call to contemplation. And I listened to it. It's really, I think, very apropos right now. So I encourage anybody who likes podcasts to listen to that one, March 27th.
Very good.
Yeah.
We've got about 5 minutes left. I want to give our Zoomers, any other Zoomers, a chance to comment. Anybody, if you want to, just come on in now. If not, we will go to Jim.
It seems to me that there is an interesting flaw in the discussion of this subject and so many other subjects in our modern lives. As far as this subject is concerned, we have a discussion about how we relate to cell phones, how we relate to the electronic media, but the constant is the cell phone. And the cell phone, we are all accepting, it's going to be there, it's going to change, it's not going to change, it's going to be what it wants to be. And the reason is because it's more powerful than all of us put together. And it is the one that is manipulating us. It is the one that is setting the agenda. It is the one that is setting limits on what we can and cannot do. And until we change our thinking that we really do have the authority to regulate these companies who are making huge amounts of money, unless we accept the fact that we have the right to do that, I don't see how we're able to even address the subject.
Good point. Anyone else want to?
Yeah.
Carol.
Loss of self-control. Who's in charge?
Yep. Go ahead, Norley.
And how ironic is it that we in St. Andrew have an app for our phones that we're encouraged to check into class? And I'm like, oh, what fun. I'm gonna log in and tell people that I've been at the service and at this class. And I can see what I've donated.
Yeah, very good. Alice.
As I was leaving class last Sunday, walking down the hallway here, there's a lady sitting there. She's not in this class. She had her phone. She had her iPad. She had a laptop.
Oh, wow.
All three of them open, and she's looking at all of them. And I'm going,
Wow. Lots of screens.
Yeah.
Quick question to our anthropologist, our worldwide anthropologist. Are these issues across cultures, across the world, Peter?
Yeah, they seem to be. I'm not an expert on this topic, but I'm sure enjoying the conversation. But I will say one thing. When I was in South Sudan some years, about 10 years ago, just as they were becoming an independent nation, I went out to the border of the capital, which is Juba, to the very edge with the person who took me there in his truck. to the last stall of the last entrepreneurial woman who was out at the edge trying to make a buck. You know what I'm saying? At the edge of the entire city. And the first thing I saw, she was on her cell phone, making connections
Right.
and helping to make her life at the margin work better. Cell phones are everywhere.
Cell
Yes.
phones are everywhere. Yep.
And it's good for certainly good for connections. They're being used in the Amazon rainforest, for, indigenous people, so. So I know for me, when we go to an airport or a doctor's office or anything, just observe. Everyone, even adults, are on their phones. And even, I understand they don't know each other, but even families that are sitting together will not be talking. So I'm launching kind of a one-person resistance here. I have a book in my car. So whenever I go to the doctor's office or anything, I bring my book into the office. I'm the only one reading the book, but I feel I want to make a statement that I'm not going to be on my phone, because I know if I didn't have that book, I would probably be on my phone. But we've got to observe, if we're, especially with someone that we know, why sit there and just be on our phones and not interact more?
And it starts pretty young too, because I've seen families sitting at a table where their little kid who is in a high chair
Yes.
is on a little game thing. So they're already being trained, you know, at a young age. They're not bothering anybody. They're just zoned onto this. Yeah, and we're talking sitting around a table, you know, so.
Great. Okay, last one with okay, real quick.
Everybody is like, you know, so involved. They don't even know what their kids are doing. Like, you know, they just sentenced the parents to this kid who brought us a gun to school. The parents had no clue that their kids have weapons. And the one at Littleton High School, those parents had no clue that their kids had an arsenal of guns in their basement.
The
And that's, you know, because everybody's so involved in, you know, their own little cell phone or whatever they're involved in. It's just ridiculous, you know.
Good point.
They're starting to sentence the parents for these kids that, you know, bring weapons to school now.
Yep. We've got to wrap up, but I want to take real quick, Ann and then Mitch, and then we got to go.
Okay, well, I'm just listening to all of this, of course, like all of us are. We, sitting here in this room, are the examples by which our children are
Right.
going to be following what we're doing. And unless we, I remember who was saying it a moment ago, but I'm certainly guilty of that. I have a son that is in, he manages a computer facility at CU. And, you know, I defer to him. I admit it, versus sharing my own personal opinion about something or reaching out to learn something else. I'll just call Eric.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Ann. Mitch.
This has been a very important topic, but it's not unique.
We have to.
If we if we march backwards in time, it was cell phones now, but then the internet and personal computers. And then you might have had television, all of these things in the height of their newness would have been the source of conversation like this. And the fact of the matter is, this isn't the end, because if we go forward, technology is going to change.
Always be a
And
new
10
thing.
years from now, where this group would be together again, it would be another device, another diversion.
Right,
that we were talking
right.
about.
Okay, next week, we have a St. Andrew member who is the former chair of the Denver Public Library Foundation. We're going to talk about libraries. Do we go to libraries? How much of it is print and how much of it is audiobooks? And so I hope you'll come and talk to that. Thank you, Christine, for a great presentation. See you next week.
I thought I had sent you my revised.
Yeah.
Is that right? But I already had all the.
Yeah.
One they gave me last week.
That's okay, no, I said that last one. Recently, that I'll be making. That's what I didn't realize.
Can you take that screen off there so I can read what's behind it? It's a black screen.
The